My kids like to joke that I'm the worst cook in the world and that I can ruin even something like a smoothie with 3 ingredients. That's because one time I poked at the blade of the blender too soon uh, while making a simple smoothie for the kids, and it whacked all these splinters off of the spoon, and we had to pick them out. But it happened again. Cooking this chicken, ugh. I'd say more than half was edible, but much of it cooked away, and I don't know. Maybe they just give really low quality poor chicken at these food things. It seemed to be a lot of blood. I don't remember always so much blood. Anyway, wow. And then the rice got messed up because had this like tube of sour cream left over from El Taco Tote in the fridge, and I added it in while I was still cooking the rice, while the rice still needed cooking. That was a big mistake. It like curded up and went throughout all the rice. It was so gross. And like I'm like, ugh, do I have to finish this? Yum. Meanwhile, a scene of carnage. So every time I cook, does every smoke detector have to go off? These are all down. Oh, there's one that didn't go off. Thank you. Now I know which one won't save my life. But it is a little annoying. Is that just an apartment thing? I fear it's a dead roaches inside the workings of the oven thing. You know, formerly alive, and then it heats up. There used to be a bunch of roaches in there. When I first moved in, I called one the clock roach because I could see it crawling across the digital display. Like the perfect shape of an insect over these numbers. So that's good. That means all the food gets a little extra roach flavor. Horrifying. All right, time to walk into the ocean. But suicide's a bummer topic. There's a student that I've known for like a couple of years at Manzano, because I've been long-term subbing for a long time. Just always like super nice in all the classes, though maybe a little meek. And lately I'd been noticing on the attendance that it said the attendance code for being in the hospital. And I'm like, what happened to her? I hope she's all right. Anyway, today I heard she had a suicide attempt after some really messed up drama with family. I don't know. I started to think about things like, oh yeah, she was very flinchy, you know? Some other teachers have said things that I've heard. Ugh. You know, people are so volatile when they're growing up. I mean, oh, it's so dark. Kids are not all right, as another secretary at this school texted me one day. And we overheard this giant fight. Not a fight, just the kid yelling and screaming at the adults. And the adults trying to deal with the situation. A lot of the kids are, but even the seemingly okay ones, you know, have their struggles. It's Albuquerque is a part of what the University of Nevada, in a big study called the Suicide Belt, a north-south swath of desert west that goes the whole length of the country from Mexico to Canada, and where there's a lot of poverty, a lot of access to guns, a lot of alone time, long miles for accidents as well. That's something else, but there must be vehicular suicides. That's well. Anyway, suffering's everywhere, of course. My big thought on suicide that's helped me out many times in life is it's a permanent solution to temporary problems, you know? And like, I love what Carl Sagan said about how after 13.8 billion years, all the particles of this whole universe, elements of it, rose up into a wave that exactly resembles you, you know, that is you. Here you are, the universe, able to behold itself, yourself, you know, connected even on this like rich, lush material level. Okay, and that video that cut off, looked at this one, beautiful, about great migrations in North America. Fascinating. I bet that would make a good companion to Tony Horowitz's A Voyage Long and Strange. I should put those books together. I think I will. Oh, I just heard like a wildcat cry. That was a person, though. Okay. You know, I think I inherited this one from my sister Leanne, who took her own life in 2001. Jeez. But I don't think of that every time I think of her, because she was like so much more than just her final, you know, day. Social history of the American frontier is a great topic. 1776 to 1890, times of change, and that's fascinating. The New Country, good title, good font, good picture. This book is a beautiful college press book. Oxford, the oldest college press, goes back to the printing press, literally. Isn't that crazy? I want to get some Incanabula, just like a framed page for my wall. That's like a book lover's holy grail, to have something from the first century of books, sorry. I have seen Incanabula that's $200 online on eBay and so on. I will definitely own a page of that sometime. I'd like to have some ephemera from every century of the last few centuries, just because it's all got its own cool resonance and it's interesting. The ancientness of my 1850s books on the antique shelf, they just like, they pull me in when I pass by sometimes. I'm like, that's something from another time. You know, that wasn't made on an assembly line. Those books who read those, you know? Somebody in some small town in Indiana. I wrote my essay, Dear People Who Want Me Gone, about my first year of college, ages 17 and 18, and a little beyond. I read so many books like this because I really wanted that to be my chapter that was about like the West, in particular the Arizona part of the West, as you people like to call it, Arizona. Wow, you can see the motion in the image. That's cool. It's been on my to-read list for a long time, and I did read sections of this. No, that doesn't look like a red spine. I don't know. Not at all. Not much, anyway. I have read from it. I think I block quote from it in the essay. I'll tell you, I sure love that novel, Siddhartha. You know, I'm in no hurry ever in my life to ever join an organized group of anything ever again. But some of the more chilled out Buddhists seem like pretty cool. I like a lot of their big ideas. Meditation is really wild. I've always found it very difficult. My mind's all busy. This book is important to me because I've never read it, but I met the coolest young woman who was reading this when I lived in Alaska. I was reading Edward Abbey's The Monkey Wrench Gang, this exact copy, in fact, and she was reading God, a Biography. Is there symbolism there? We were in this coffee shop that I worked in sometimes, and that she had worked in the other location of it, and so she kind of felt like part of the whole milieu there, and she was good friends with another one of the employees, Barb. This was in Soldotna, Alaska. Anyway, I've been working at this Kaladi Brothers, which is a small chain of coffee shops up there. This is a cool idea for a book, by the way. It's like a biography of the biblical God, really like considering the psychology of the character as in the Bible. That's a fascinating idea. I own it because I think I would read that sometime. I'm just not always into every theme, you know. Sometimes I'm into this theme, sometimes I'm into that theme. Read by theme is some of the best reading advice I've ever gotten in my life. My friend Jody Malone told me that back in 2000. And, well, don't just read one book about something, read 6 books. Then you'll be an expert in it. I'm like, that's great advice. He's all, let every book you read lead to the next one. I'm like, that's also great advice. That served me so well. I've quoted it before, but I love that Nietzsche quote, for an intelligent person, every new idea immediately takes its place as a link in a chain. So it's a fun way to read like that, you know, to see the connections. Reading by theme has given me like passing expertise with so many subjects at different times. One year I just read only books about Korea. I was like, Korea's so interesting. I just heard what could have been a shot and then a scream, but it might just be people playing kids. Anyway, we were the only 2 readers in the cafe at the time and got to talking. And we went to a diner and we talked late into the night. And it was winter, and so the northern lights were out, and it was like so picturesque and awesome. It was like a total movie that I lived. And she was like, "You ever think about just quitting your job and just going on a crazy road trip and just driving off and seeing what happens?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so I quit my job. And we drove to Anchorage, and that drive between Soldotna and Anchorage is literally one of the most world-famous, beautiful drives. And in the forbidding winter, when it's kind of dangerous to drive and there's very few people out, it's like amazing. It's incredible. But we knew some people in Anchorage. She had a bunch of friends up there because she lived there. And so I just called my work and left a voicemail and was like, "Sorry, I want to go on this trip with Christine, and I don't want to go to work tomorrow." They're all, "Well, if you're not resigning, you're fired." Youth. So we went and had this amazing trip to Anchorage, and the Northern Lights were always a part of it, and lots of interesting people and bookstores. There's quite a few books in this collection that I bought on that trip. She gave me a copy of the I Ching, which is still in here somewhere. So many things happened, and we hung out with this guy Fritz, who has since died in a small plane crash. We hung out at this wrecked up building that the earthquake of 1964 had ruined. I think we went to a coffee shop music show, but mostly it was driving, and it was crazy. What a time. So I guess that's why I read some books, is because I have experiences connected to them. And I'm going to be interviewing her again for The Endless Winter, or Soldatna in Oral History, the last chapter of my book that I need to write. And it's comprised of interviews with 10 different people from this really long, cold winter of 98, 99. She's a writer now. She has a published book about hunting in Alaska and has written tons of articles. It's funny, back then she was a total Buddhist and was just like listening to Nick Cave all the time. She became like this big hunting activist. But I think she's like an ethical hunting person. And honestly, like, unless you're a vegetarian, nobody has any major room to criticize hunting, you know? There are actually even populations that are like, can become a health hazard, like deer with their ticks in some of these really populated areas. That said, I'm like above average pro animal. Anyway, God autobiography seems like a cool idea. I think he followed it up with one about Jesus, but this is the one I would want to read. Unless this is really good, and then I'll just see what else this guy wrote and what it's all about. Sheesh, is there a suicide theme in this world? I don't know. Were we talking about it earlier? Poor Iris Chang had a tragic death. And Vice did a photo shoot of her death with models imitating. I mean, come on. Sad suicide after getting way too deep into her subjects. And feeling them way too deeply. You can feel her overwhelm in some of these books. Like her book, The Rape of Nanking, is just like saturated in just like empathy over this unfathomable, gigantic historic tragedy. And she studied things like the Bataan Death March, but this book has quite a share of suffering. But it's so good, it's so comprehensive, and it'll change how you see the history of America forever if you read this book. She's a great historian. Her work is interesting, and she should have stuck around to write more. And but you can't tell the history of the West without the history of the Chinese workers here, the laundromats, the railroads, everything. It's a parallel and intertwined history. And she's really one of the GOAT historians. She is. Her books are great. I don't know why there's just a splatter of ink on this book, but interesting. I guess if a book's going to have stuff on it, it should look cool. Okay, so don't forget we're going through the nonfiction. And here's a beautiful recent acquisition. I believe I bought it at page 1. So pretty. But, I find everything interesting. And the origins of Christianity are definitely interesting. Took an early Christianity class that I was like, whoa, this is a key to so much Western civ, etc. Global history, story, everything. And, anytime you're talking about ancient texts, that's super interesting. Discovery, translation, contents. Blah. Okay, this was a really great book to read. During my year of reading nothing about Korea, I felt like that would not have been a full, complete reading experience without this book. North Korea, South Korea, U.S. Policy at a Time of Crisis. This is maybe one of the only books that does not get hysterical about North Korea. And obviously North Korea has some way less than ideal things and are ruled by a dictatorial family. But even as Americans mock the propaganda that government puts out, they're susceptible to propaganda of their own. Look at this homelessness in North Korea from this secret video camera. Have you seen the city that I live in? Maybe your city too? This book just breaks it down, and it's so interesting. It's just fair. It's just good. And, really it's good. I really liked the book, The Two Koreas, and I felt like this was a necessary coda for that book. I think anybody that's ever, gotten really into a North Korean escapee memoir, which some of those are real and good. Some are just they've been disputed. Escape from Camp 14, that one was just totally half fabricated. We're being propagandized for other reasons from other directions. I knew it. I knew there were some details that didn't line up when I was reading that one. But, if you ever read, there are good stories about it too. A Kim Jong-il production about a director and an actress being kidnapped and forced to make Pulgasari, basically a Godzilla movie, after being kidnapped and held hostage. That's crazy. What a story. Though that director definitely was like, hey, I got like a studio at my disposal here. If I just play this game, I could make my movies completely funded. Then he stopped and made Three Ninjas. And later on, they escaped via Vienna on a press tour thing. When I lived in Boston back in 2000, I had this roommate that was obsessed with South Korean economics. And I was like, that is the weirdest obsession. And he never could make it like interesting to me. I've since like read enough that I'm like, that actually could be a really interesting topic. But he was interested in it in like a really focused way. And anyway, he later became appointed to be some sort of an economic advisor or something on South Korea in some official government capacity. He was just a super weird roommate at the time. He was all right. My main memory about half of people that I have problems with is like, I probably should have just been more relaxed and chill with them. I would always get home from work really tired, and he would always be like super chatty and just be like, let me show you my photo album. I'd have been like, man, you're going to love YouTube someday. You can just talk all you want. But right now, I got to lie down. It's a pretty nice little compact book. Bought this at Bookworks a long time ago under its previous ownership when I worked there. Great North Valley Albuquerque bookstore. I think I've heard Bob Odenkirk say it's his favorite Albuquerque bookstore, so that's cool. I wonder if that still counts because it's under new management and it's very different. So William Morris is this incredible figure. He was like the original Marie Kondo of his time, but so much more. He was like a Leonardo da Vinci whose interests get diverted into like domestic matters, and also the philosophy of it. Guy invented wallpaper. He created the idea of like aesthetic utilitarianism, like that everything should give you joy or be practical. I've long wanted to read this. He's like a whole thing. He's got like a society that worships him and burns effigies of his enemies. No, not that one. But anyway, I find it funny that Marie Kondo has kind of disavowed her own philosophy. She's like, I can't keep up with all that crap. But it's not a bad idea to be like, do I own what I own for reasons, Does it spark joy? Does it look good? Is it nice? Does it have some purpose? I mean, really, wallpaper was invented as the squares that lined hat boxes back in the day, but he took it to another level, designed many types of it. Found a wonderful material that's half lead, half asbestos, probably. Oh, speaking of that early Christianity class, this was one of the textbooks for it, and I read it. The Early Church. It was pretty good. Penguin. Orange Spine. Put together all the memoirs with orange spines in this one section, because Penguin has a bunch of those. Oh, what a cat. You look like you're enjoying a deep slumber. And you, it seems you fell asleep reading. Yeah, early Christianity. Wild topic. So interesting. I mean, it's just cool to see the messy origins of anything, That's why we love prequels, probably. We Have Eaten the Forest. What a fascinating story about a nomadic people in the areas affected by the Vietnam War, bombed, etc. What a great topic. I mean, amazing, huh? Story of a Montagnard village in the central highlands of Vietnam. Condominus is the Proust of ethnology. Wow. And Claude Levi-Strauss said that. Levi-Strauss. A reader picking up this book today may wonder, who are the Monongar? What was their role in the Vietnam War? A fair answer is these are the people who lived under the dense forest canopy that was seen on television every night of the living room war that American forces tried in vain to penetrate. Whoa. He's like an ethnographer, anthropologist. Oh, I have to read this sometime. I know I used this title in my essay that was composed of all book titles. Studying the Earth from Space, the Prairie Has an Endless Sky. That'll be in book 2 of my book. Oh yeah, and I was really on a kick with books about home and the rooms of a house and so on. Houses, architecture. Something I wrote involved that, and I'd like to involve it more. But how habitat made us human, that's cool. This was from back when I was working at Bookworks and got so many free books. ARCs always have terrible back covers, but that's just because they're practical, just getting it out there. It's a perfectly functional, fine back cover, but it's like not ready for the public yet. Might as well finish up this shelf of non-fic. Okay, I know a beautiful book when I see one, and that is an objet d'art. That's incredible. Huh. Wow. Glint of the sun captured. Examination of power and isolation in the White House. I think it's about Nixon. Maybe it's more like social analysis from his experiences in politics. Regardless, I deemed it readable. Okay, here's a great title. Why does the world exist? Let's go with why be moral? Why is the world in love again? Yeah, he would like that, man. Best books of the year. That's cool. I like a philosophical deep dive once in a while because that's not my main area of research. Okay, Henry James's Bro, William James, The Varieties of Religious Experience. Kind of a fun topic. Where do all these religions come from? Take a Darwinian look at that. What are they? I have not read it, but I want to. It's definitely on my list. One of the greatest works of nonfiction of the 20th century. Okay, all right. Revolutionary in its view of religious life is centered not within the church, but solely within the feelings, acts, and experiences of individual men in their solitude. Barnes & Noble. Their copies are all right. Get the job done. Closing of the American Mind. How higher education has failed democracy and impoverished the soul of today's students. What are the odds I'll ever read this? So low. But I must have kept it for some reason. I guess because I'll probably write more about the educational system, and I'll want some books on that subject. Ugh. And I'll end up enjoying it, but I won't look forward to it. This has Teacher's Lounge free pile all over it. That thing definitely had a Ruth Bader Ginsburg bookmark in it at some point. All right, this has been some nonfiction. We've had 2 videos from this case, maybe 3. There's more to come. Like this geniusly placed shelf down here. That's so easy to reach and access. Okay. I've gotten good feedback to my daughter Anodyne guesting on a video, and hopefully she'll stay with me for a month, and I'll have some more opportunities to record with her because she is hilarious. I mean, and I've actually really enjoyed playing that video back once or twice. Oh, my kid's so cool. When she's posturing and being aggro, I'm like, you're great. The air conditioner is not working well. I don't think the pump is working. But every time you call a landlord up, you have to be like, oh, why haven't I paid the full balance yet? I really should wait till a more opportune time. All right, folks, nonfiction, what's it all about? Learning, being expanded, knowing things, having something to talk about at parties and with coworkers, being ignorant. How many of these have I actually read? I think I read 8. Some of these I've read a bunch of, and they've been very useful to me. That Kenai book I've spent a lot of time with. Same with Our Great Heritage. I don't know. Maybe I don't even own books to read them. Maybe I'm just a hoarder. That's better. Much better. Coming up, a do-it-yourself manual that's definitely getting recategorized. The longest title in the collection. And an excuse to talk about true crime. Really some good stuff coming up. Okay, I mean, I'm a little biased toward lots of books. Should we make it louder somehow, Squirrel? Come on, keep drinking. All right, good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. Yes, maybe I'm doing you all a disservice. You should be out in the world, learning how to fix a car or something. Or weave baskets. Something productive. No, I don't mean it. What the sweet, sweet likes. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.